Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's a Monday, and of course, you're joining us for the first day of the week. And of course, we wind up the month of November as well. And the year coming, of course, to the close. And of course, this is a time for us to review how our year has been. Of course, as we wind up, how we can end strong in regard of course, the different areas of our lives, but especially with how we are dealing with our money and how we have been able to invest in the different asset classes that we have chosen to be part of as investors. This is Financial Markets, and my name is Anthony Sebale, your host, and this show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. Altex now is giving you access to different treasury bonds across East Africa with the help of your mobile phone. Now you can access all these instruments across East Africa wherever you are, and this is by simply dialing *292#. You can be using either your MTN or your Airtel line, and when you do so, you will be able to access the markets. And remember, Altex East Africa is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda, and these, of course, gladly bring you even an exchange-traded fund that is, of course, operating, the only one operating in Uganda at the moment. Altex East Africa trading markets open at 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and close at 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time, and of course they will give you value for your money. At as little as 15,000 now you can buy treasury bonds or even sell at your convenient price and the best interest rates on the regional scale. And of course, Altex East Africa helping you to do something new there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from the long weekend. It was a long one, especially for our friends there in the US markets. We had a Thanksgiving Day on Thursday, so the markets were closed on Thursday, and then on Friday it was a Black Friday, so we had half-day trading. In other words, the trades ended at exactly 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That is at the New York Stock Exchange. And of course, there was a little movement in price there. Binance also, a big coin there on the cryptocurrency market, was able to invest further $1 billion in order to revive cryptocurrency there at the coin. That is Ethereum, rather. Actually, Binance was able to invest in Ethereum, and also we try to see cryptocurrencies like the Bitcoin still struggling. Right now, Bitcoin at over $16,000, and there's a lot, of course, that has been happening even across the weekend. Well, sit back and relax. We are going to drive you through what transpired as the markets closed on Friday, and of course what you should expect looking forward for the new week, and of course as we wind up the second last month of the year 2022. My name is Anthony. Once again, you can hit us up on Twitter at Smart24TV or at my personal handle at Anthony Sebale, and you can get to interact with us on your experiences. Now, kicking off with the stock market here in Uganda at the Uganda Securities Exchange, the local company index and the all-share index appreciated, particularly the all-share index moved up by 1.32 points in the Friday trading there at the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, this was following a performance where we had 5 Uganda Securities Exchange companies that are listed on the exchange participating in trades out of the 18 total listings. And amongst these, we had Wumeme. Yes, surprisingly, Wumeme was back with huge volumes and a huge turnover. And of course, Wumeme had the biggest trade as well on the 5th day of trading, or the last weekday of trading. Wumeme recorded the highest volume of close to 730,700 shares that were recorded on the Friday of last week, which was the last day of trading of the week, and this was the biggest volume that was registered amongst the participating equities. We also had participation from Stanbic Bank of Uganda, and Stanbic had just 100,000 shares that were transacted on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Bank of Baroda also tried to remain in the game after having about 85,200 shares being recorded in trading for the 5th day of trades. And Uganda Clays also maintained its performance in the 4th position amongst the biggest traders at over 74,640 shares. MTN amongst the participants was moved with the smallest amount of shares transacted at exactly 3,763 shares that were recorded. Remember, this is data courtesy of the Uganda Stock Exchange. We don't fabricate this data. We do get to collect this data from USE, organize it, and get to present it to you in an organized manner, and try to throw more light on what the implication of the data is at the moment. Now, regarding the gainers and the losers, we just had 2 top gainers. Unfortunately, none of the participants we just mentioned showed up in the gainers list, and we had cross listings like Nation Media Group and Equity Bank Limited appear in the top gainers list. On the losing side, however, we had 4 losers, and it was a similar story. We did not have any local company show up on the losing list, neither did we have one on the gainers list. So mainly the gainers and the losers were cross listings. On the other hand, all the participants were local companies. Remember, when we're talking about the gainers list, these are people who have appreciated in price. So you're looking at stocks that have gained value for shareholders. Remember, as a shareholder, you want to gain value for your money. You want to gain value on your stock. You don't want the stock to be stagnant. You don't want it to be where you left it last year. So usually this gain in value definitely is what some investors are looking out for. But it's not always equivalent to the participation or to the activity that we see on the markets, particularly when it comes to the cross listings here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. They do have movements in price, but rarely do we see participation. And I've explained this before on the show, that the movements in price of these cross listings mainly are attributable to factors outside the demand or the supply of a particular stock that is cross-listed. Because these being cross-listings, they do have things like exchange rate coming into the picture, that is to calculate the pricing. We don't have to have a way different price from Kenya, putting the conversion factor of the exchange rate into play. So usually at the end of the day, we have to at least make the reconcile and say, okay, what do we have at the Nairobi Stock Exchange? And then we convert those prices to Ugandan shillings, and of course we get to harmonize the two stock prices. And sometimes this is how the prices move, depending on how these stocks have performed actually on their primary stock exchange. And this rubs off to their prices here on the cross-listed stock exchange. Now, these, of course, also are not limited to the factors that I'm mentioning here, but there are so many other factors. And the exchange rate as well is one of them, because the exchange rate varies. So you find that every single day you're seeing a slight change in the exchange rate. There will be a slight change in the prices, also depending on the participation on the primary stock exchange. This is a picture we had last Friday. We had mainly actually all the participants from the local companies, and the other batch of the gainers and the bottom losers was mainly the cross listings at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, amongst the bottom losers, unfortunately, Jubilee Holdings continues to disappoint shareholders here after it came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 2.78% at exactly 5,949 Ugandan shillings. Let's first put the stock depreciation of Jubilee Holdings into perspective. This is a stock that began the year with the price above 10,000 Ugandan shillings, currently counting 5,900 shillings, and this is about 4,000, closely 4,000 shillings and above that has been lost on their share price since last year. This is a very, very significant decline in the price here, and of course something that should worry many of the shareholders in the company. Now, Jubilee Holdings, to just give you a little bit of the background, is mainly a Kenyan insurance company that started its operations in 1937, and of course it was in the East African region, operating as Jubilee Holdings Limited. Now, the company's operations in Uganda were revived in 1992 by the formation of the Jubilee Insurance Company of Uganda, together with Aga Khan Fund for the Economic Development and International Finance Corporation, as well as the Development Finance Company of Uganda, famously known as DFCU Bank. Now, Jubilee Holdings or Jubilee Insurance is one still of the largest insurance companies that Uganda has ever seen. Now, to get listed on the stock exchange, the company got listed on the 14th of February 2006. Now, that's a very huge wealth of experience on the exchange, over about 24 years of experience on the stock exchange. Currently, the company holds a total value of exactly 356 billion Ugandan shillings worth of market capitalization. And we're talking about a company that represents over 1.69% still of the entire equity market here at the Uganda Securities Exchange. This makes this company the 9th most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, looking at their loss on Friday, which was the last week day of trading last week, they lost about close to 170 Ugandan shillings of their price, down to 5,949 Ugandan shillings, a 2.78% loss that was registered on the stock exchange. Looking at their participation, they have had narrowly 0 shares, almost very, not even meager, but zero performance on the stock exchange since the year began. They had about 59, they still have about 59.9 million shares floating on the stock exchange, and this costing 356 billion currently, basing on their current price of 5,949. Now, talking about their starting of the year, they had about 10,000 Ugandan shillings worth of one share at the beginning of the year. And when you look even further, last year in the month of September, their stock prices hit as high as 12K at the moment in 2021 in September, and then they entered the year, a new year, with a price of 10,000, and since then they have dropped their price to 5,900 shillings, which is a very disappointing performance there from Jubilee Holdings Limited. But to put things into perspective, this doesn't mean that the company is doing bad. Like I said, it's one of the biggest, and still is one of the biggest insurance companies that are working currently in Uganda. So this has nothing to do with the company's performance itself. But in as far as the stock performance is concerned, there is a lot of questions to be answered about the Jubilee Holdings Limited stock here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Jubilee Holdings wasn't the only gainer, rather loser. On the losing spree, we still have Centum Investments that's also competing very closely in terms of losing with Jubilee Holdings. Centum further lost 1.02% of their share price, and when you look at their current price, we are looking at 243.50 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, unlike Jubilee Holdings, which doesn't have any single trace of activity on the exchange since the year began, even before that, but Centum, on the other hand, is number one traded on cross-listed stock here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Looking at their performance here within the last couple of days, they did have trading on the 11th of August, then also on the 8th of August. They did have trading on the 19th of July, unlike the other cross listings that we have on the Uganda Stock Exchange. So there is still something to reckon, at least about Centum Investments company. But regardless of that, the company has also lost a lot of value in terms of year to date. And these are facts we must talk about as we wind up the year. Because as an investor, you must know what your money is doing, the value of your money, if it's going up or down, and make the right decisions in the right direction. Now, Centum started the year with a price of 444.82 Ugandan shillings at the moment, and has since then lost over 45% of their stock value in terms of year to date. And this ranks them the 14th in terms of year to date performance, which is still not very bad, but still not as good as it can get for a company like Centum Investments. Your worries as shareholders should also be compounded by the fact that Centum has lost 8% of its value within the last 1 month. That is from the 28th of October to date. The company has lost from 8% of its value, from over 300 shillings down to currently 243.5 Ugandan shillings per share. That is in the last 1 month. In the last 3 months, they have lost over 20% of their stock value. The last 6 months have lost about 22.6%. And in the last 1 year exactly, they have lost over 55% in their year-on-year performance. It's also another significant loss that many shareholders are really and should be really worried about. And coming out at the bottom as well, last trading was still Centum Investments Company. Ever since Centum really started trading some of its assets, there has been a lot of there's been a lot of change in the way investors are perceiving the company. Just recently, the company was able to shed off a good amount of its assets, especially from CDN Bank, and this was to a Nigerian bank that, of course, now took over CDN Bank. CDN Bank is a bank mainly in Tanzania and Kenya, and was a subsidiary of Centum Investments Company. It's one of the assets the company was actually able to lose at the moment. Away from Centum Investments, East African Breweries also registered a loss of 0.48% of their price from the stock exchange currently. As well, Kenya Airways lost about 0.03% of their price there at the Uganda Stock Exchange, and recording a loss, of course, coming in the losers list here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. And that's it from the gainers and the top gainers and the losers here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. But There was, of course, participation from Womeme, which was the biggest trader for the day, as well as Stanbic Bank, Bank of Baroda, and Uganda Cranes, which did perform so wonderfully well at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, regarding the performance of the USE Market All-Share Index, which is the benchmark index, and tracks the aggregate performance of all the listed equities on the exchange. The index went up, of course, consequent of the good performance, especially from the local or domestic stocks, and going up by 1.32. The index closed at exactly 1,216 points, and this was a 0.11% daily gain in the all-share index. Now, the 1 week performance is down to a loss of 1.13%, and the 4 week loss as well went down to a loss of currently 3.72%, winding up last week's trading. The overall year-to-date loss has also gone down to 14.38% from 22% loss just a few days ago, which is a good sign that the markets could be returning to very much better performance. The local company index, of course, maintained its value at exactly 268.6 points due to the resilience of the domestically listed stocks, including Womeme, Stanbic Baroda, who, despite their participation, tried and did maintain their value on the market. Now, the local company index is counting a loss of 0.03% in their 1 week trades, and a 4 week loss of 1.17%, currently at also a year-to-date loss of 17.27%, which is also still quite high, but reducing at the moment. That's basically it from the Uganda Stock Exchange. We would like right now to take a quick break, and we do return. I want to just have a little look into Womeme stock and as well as Stanbic and see how they are competing currently, and then we'll cross over to the land of Uhuru and the rest of Africa and the global financial markets. You're watching Smart 24 TV, and we drive your business. Stay with us. We'll be right back.